Hello, and welcome to our inaugural episode of Leaders in Transformation. We're here to dive in deep in the world of minds and of the leaders behind the high performance digital organizations of this era through engaging interviews and thought provoking conversations. I'm your host, John Rupel, bringing you the stories, struggles, and perseverance from our incredible leaders. Today, we have a great episode with Gary Tamber to provide or to take on the proverbial stage. Gary is an award winning technology leader in Agile, DevOps, and cloud platforms. In fact, this year, Gary won or was awarded DASA's Leader of Inspiring DevOps Leader Award for his work in the DevOps and cloud field. Congrats, Gary.
Thank you.
Gary is currently the director of DevSecOps for ADP with an impressive resume behind him. Gary has decades of experience in engineering, agile, and DevOps realm, holding several leadership positions. Gary has effectively led teams at various large corporations to transform the software testing and delivery process using the modern tools and practices incorporating agile, DevOps, CI/CD, and cloud with security in mind. Gary, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, no, it's great. So, read a lot about you, did some research on you. It was really fascinating. And so, what I'd like to do is just start off with the success part, is thinking about a little bit about success, meaning for yourself as a leader, what does that success, what does success mean for you or today for you? And then another part there would be is what does success feel like to you as a leader?
Yeah, no, that's a great question to start with. I think success could mean different things to different people, and what success meant to me at the beginning of my career is a lot different than what it means to me today, right? But I would define success as being able to do what you love on a daily basis, knowing and like living your purpose, what drives you, and also along the way achieving the goals that you set out for yourself. So in short, I think success could mean anybody becoming the person that they want to become, right? Could be simple as that. And you talked about leadership. When I started my career, um, I used to think leaders are like more authoritative figures, like commanders in the army. They're best at what they do, and they're very quick at making decisions and providing guidance. But I think a lot of that has shifted ever since. Now I feel like the leaders are more like the glue of the team. They don't have to be the smartest people in solving the problems in the team, but they have to be best at collaborating, inspiring, and enabling their teams to solve problems, and steering the ship of the team in the right direction. So they become more like captains of the ship rather than commanders of the army.
Nice. You didn't know that. I don't know if you knew this, but I was part of the Navy, so I really get the commander of the ship. That's awesome.
I did some research as well.
Okay, all right, cool. Thanks for putting that in there. We appreciate that. So metrics then, right? So everybody says, well, how do you measure success? So as your leader, for you being a leader, is there any secret sauce or metrics that you use to say, hey, am I on track? Am I doing that good job enabling, supporting? Is there anything there that you want to share? You could share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I would measure success as like measuring it through my team. So if my team is able to accomplish the goals that we've set out together, and while we do that, the my team is able to thrive. They are able to live their purpose and do what they love doing. I think that would be success for me. So I think the criteria of success is broadened from just myself, like how do I become successful, to how do we become successful as a team. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
no, that's excellent. And several leaders I've talked to over the years is that, a decade ago, people were doing this behind the scenes, is they were actually caring for their people. And now it's come to the forefront. So that to me is we've made a lot of progress. So thank you for sharing that. One of the neat things I came across in your, reviewing you is the article you did for ADP, the evolution of DevOps placing security at the center. And what I just want to compliment you on, you talked about, sharing success with others, or, being successful, is your family. In there, that article, there were some great pictures there. You and your wife on the hillside, or, mountainside, and then
Right.
you and the family at the funny one. That was awesome. Just want to, you got a great family there. So just want to compliment you on that.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was Switzerland, by the way. It's a great place to visit.
Nice, nice. So for our audience, then, I don't know if you know about Gary, but he wrote an article called "Go with the Flow," and this, to me, had great insight into how we can deal with change, especially with what we've all been through in the last couple of years, and with unexpected twists and turns that life throws at us. So, Gary, one thing, in there was this quote. I'm going to read it here. It says, "I realized that a better way to deal with changes is to replace some disabling beliefs with new empowering ones and manage our fears proactively." So as we discussed a few minutes before the show, we're sort of very, like, we're pretty much aligned on that. And so my thinking is, where did you get that thinking, or what would you say was the source of your perspective? How did you come up with that realization?
Yeah, well, I'm an engineer and I'm a programmer. So, over time, I kind of realized that our mind is very much like a computer and it could be programmed very easily. So, we're all like constantly programming and reprogramming our brains. As when we're younger, we're all very impressionable. So, we pick up beliefs that are around us without giving it too much analysis or thought, and we inherit those beliefs, right? In software terms, this is similar to like using open source software. You just take the packages, and make it part of who you are, but you don't really open up and see what's in them. And there could be some vulnerabilities lurking in there. There could be some deep rooted belief systems that we grew up with, that could turn out to be wrong, or even they could hurt us over the long run, right? So having that mindset, I realized that if we could solve, like in software, if we could remediate vulnerabilities, and we could find and debug code, we could do something similar with our minds as well. So whenever we come across a change or an unexpected twist, or having a difficult time dealing with something, I realize we just need to dig deeper into our minds and understand, what beliefs are disabling us or hurting us, right?
Yeah,
Like I mentioned, it's very similar to like debugging code, where you might have to go down multiple layers to find out that one line of code that's messing everything up.
yeah,
So once you've identified that belief, you can choose to change it with another belief that serves you better in life.
yeah,
So example of that would be like when we were all growing up, we all thought failure is bad and something you should avoid, right?
right,
But the fact is, it is unavoidable, right? And it should be thought of more as a stepping stone for progression,
yeah,
right? So if you are holding on to that belief that we must not fail, if you can actually replace that with something like failure is a necessary stepping stone, you will be able to deal with failures much better, right? And that's what I really meant by replacing a disabling belief with an empowering one.
oh, very and empowering. So empowerment, right? And so where you're taking me with this is, it's all about self-empowerment. So with that, I just got to ask one more question here, if you don't mind. I'm going to go a little bit deeper on this one. Is, if for our audience, right, is if they're struggling, right? A lot of people are struggling today. And so if there was a way that you could teach them, or they could self-teach, or if there's an experience they could go through, what recommendation would you have for them to be able to, teach themselves this, or get aligned to what, align themselves to how you're thinking and doing?
Yeah, I think there's no like a magic pill. I think life is teaching us constantly as we go through life experiences. All that's required is some reflection and some introspection. We're all going through change already, right? We're
Yeah,
constantly going through change, and it's not easy for anybody. like you mentioned, everybody's struggling, right? But next time you're having a difficult time or a difficult situation, I would say just take additional time to retrospect, to dig deeper, and find out what is that key belief that's causing you grief, and making things difficult,
Yeah.
and find an empowering belief to replace that. It's a bit of work. It's a bit of inner work, but it pays back in dividends, and that's what's really going to empower you and serve you better in the future.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that's what success is. We talked about success earlier. Success is like improving yourself regularly through the life experiences that we go through.
Yeah. No, excellent, excellent, excellent. No, I totally agree. And so, we talked about success. So let's go and flip the coin, right? Go to the other end of the spectrum now, which is the struggles part, right? Struggling. And we can all have our stories about struggling in today's world. It seems like there's more struggles than successes at times. People seem that way. But so one thing I'm curious on is, along your journey, I mean, you've had a vast, very interesting journey. And so what has most surprised you or really catch you off guard? And, is there some struggles that, you think others should be aware of that maybe we're not talking about, right? If you read different articles, read the blogs, check out the YouTube, you're doing all these, you're trying to keep up, but is there something there that sort of maybe is under the radar that you said, hey, people, we should really be waking up here? So I'm just curious what your insights are on the from the struggles perspective.
Yeah, no, struggles are very real, and it's part of the journey, right? And I'm sure most people struggle with the transformations in workplace. And there's really no simple answer or formula on how to deal with it. It really depends on the situation. But I think if you can try to embrace change, try to embrace failure, and make them part of the journey, we'll have much better time with it. Talking about like the most surprising challenge, earlier on in my career when I started doing transformations, um, I was just surprised at how everybody reacts so differently to change. And transformational projects are all about change, right? And most of the time people inherently don't do well with change. So that kind of caught me off guard because I had assumed everyone's going to be excited about this change as much as I am. So it's a bit of a struggle. There's friction, and you have to kind of learn to overcome that, work with the folks. So if you want to make the transformation of project success, you need to first start with the people, right? Do we have the right people? And do they have the right mindset? If not, then we need to work towards that. And then creating that culture that's willing to embrace that change. Otherwise, it won't be a successful transformation at all.
Yeah, and you mentioned culture. I'm glad you put that in there. That's one of my words I always make sure I get in there. It's all about the culture, folks. Don't start with process tools. That's what we've been failing for all this time. Focus, 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 focus on the culture. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And you asked about something that is not talked about, and
Yeah,
sure, I
yeah.
thought about that, and I think one of the struggles a lot of technical folks feel, is, and it's not really talked about too much, is as they grow and progress in their career, at some point, they might switch to a people leader position. And as technical experts, we take pride in being the best in our domain, right? We pride ourselves for the quality of work we produce. Like knowing our stuff better than anyone else in the room is what drives us, right?
Yep.
And now all of a sudden, when we switch to a leadership position, it becomes all about the team, right? So there's a major mindset shift that has to take place to redefine success for yourself.
Mhm.
Success is not anymore about like being the best or producing immaculate quality of work. It becomes how do you enable others to do that, and appreciating their work, rather than seeking appreciation for yourself. So it's a quite a drastic shift, and I feel like nobody really prepares you for that. So that's something I think if you're a new leader, there's a lot of new empowering beliefs that you need to adopt, to make yourself into a good leader. So that's, yeah, so that's something I would say should be publicized and talked about more, and new leaders should get training on how to kind of navigate that.
Yeah. So have you heard of the gentleman John Maxwell and his servants leadership teachings?
Right, I have, yeah.
Okay. Does
Mm.
that play into sort of like is that sort of have you looked at his stuff at all or
I feel like I am a servant leader, and it like totally jives with my philosophy. So, and I'm glad these things are like more at the forefront now.
yeah.
As I was talking about earlier, like 20, 30 years ago, I think I don't think I saw any content talking about servant leadership. So I'm glad that these kind of things are coming forward, and we need all types of leaders, right? So I think there's enough place for all different types of leader, and you got to stay true to yourself and know what kind of leader you are, and stick with that.
That's important, you know, and what you just said there, that's so important, right? Because it's just as we know, trust. Leadership is all about trust. If you can't earn the trust of your people, you cannot lead. It's that simple. And so you have
Right.
to be genuine to earn that trust. You got to be you got to be genuine. So, now
Exactly.
very good. So I'm going to go back to your ADP article again and focus, go on that one and focus. So you had mentioned in there, one of the reasons I joined ADP was that I shared similar values with leaders who put the same emphasis on security within the DevOps process. And I found that, that to me was very interesting. And so in your opinion, in our state of affairs today, you know how hard it is for talent, and organizations. So, from an organization's perspective, regarding their perspective on security, what can they do? And what should the people that want to join it, our engineers out there that want to join an organization, where does the security factor fall into place from both sides? What should each side be looking for? Meaning the company trying to hire and the person trying to go. Because that, like I said, that was a very interesting comment.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And unfortunately, John, like most of the organizations, security is still an afterthought. As we went through the pandemic, or many organizations rushed to like digitally transform their operations, with much of their workforce being remote. And the emphasis at that time was on solely on speed, and security kind of lagged. But now I feel that most organizations are trying to catch up with their security implementations and closing some of those security gaps. So, in terms of like talent, I think you said it correctly that that's hard to attract and retain. And if you are an individual looking to be hired, I would recommend that you take time to invest in yourself. It's You should aspire to learn new skills. Stay up to date with some of the latest current technologies, and learn them. And for actually, AI is probably a good example to code here. It's kind of taken the world by storm, and there's a lot of scope of how it's going to impact businesses in the future. So if you're looking to get into uh, these technologies, now is the perfect time to kind of upskill yourself, and see how this could impact businesses and how you can contribute during that transformational phase.
Yeah, and when you were speaking there, what's going through my mind is one of my mentors from the past. Um, he said, "Bigger the chaos, bigger the opportunity." And right now, I can't think of a bigger disruptor from the technologies, from our technologist perspective, than AI right now. That's
Yeah,
the way.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So also in the article there, I saw this one quote, and it said, "Outside of my day job, I contribute as a mentor through the Ontario Society of Professional Engineers, OSPE, where I encourage young technologists, especially women, to join exciting careers in tech." So I just mentioned what impact one of my mentors had by what you were saying, and this leads right into the question I'd like to ask is, what has mentoring been? How impactful has mentoring been in your life? And it sounds like pretty, you're actually paying it forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I find mentoring to be a very rewarding experience. I wish I had started earlier. And I would encourage everyone to try to be a mentor to somebody. As we kind of progress through our career, we sometimes forget that there's a large population of young engineers that are in need of some guidance and could learn from our career journeys. And you don't have to be an expert to be a mentor. I usually find that if I'm having a tough day at work, a mentoring session at the end of the day really brightens up and turns my day around. So I love to like help younger engineers hear their career stories, help them tackle whatever issue they might be dealing with, and even help them replace some of the disabling beliefs that we were talking earlier with some empowering ones, which would help them, be more successful in the future. So I find it as a really rewarding experience, and I think anybody who tries it would actually find the same. I just wish I was doing it. I started earlier than I did, so it's definitely rewarding.
Yeah, no, it's so truly said, and that's what I've been working with youth organizations my whole career, leadership, right? Teaching leadership, and to me, it's like it's so amazing is when you work with the youth. What I find working with the youth is they're actually better leaders at times than some of the adults, and like you said, it puts the smile on your face. I'm gonna have a really bad day at work, and all of a sudden get in there and that energy gets going and yeah, and so yeah, I agree with you. Yes, I would echo what you just said is please leaders out there listening to us, go out there and mentor our young leaders from the future, get them prepared because what when you were speaking, what it reminded me of is, we get this great knowledge and experience of skills, and then we get in the workforce, but in the real world application of it, or what to expect, the reality of working in the that piece is like a gap, right? That's an
Right.
unknown, and that to me is what I'm hearing you say is, you're able to bring some of that to the younger engineers, so they're not as it's not as scary for them, and they can actually enjoy the entry into launching into life for their career.
Yeah, exactly. And you won't believe how many people out there are looking for some sort of mentor and some sort of guidance.
Mhm.
So if you think that you don't have enough experience or anything like that, that's not true. You've had your journey, you've learned lots of valuable things, which some of the younger engineers would find really valuable, and it'll pay back in the dividends.
Yeah, yeah. So one more thing here I want to talk about your article, and it was your peanut butter and jelly analogy. Now, for our audience and readers out there, I'm not gonna spoil it. No spoiler alert, because I'm not gonna read the quote. But I just want to again compliment you that was I just bust out laughing. My wife looked at me like, "What are you doing?" I said, "You should read this. This is awesome." So I just want to thank you for putting a chuckle and a smile on my face the other day. That was great.
Well, thank you for highlighting that. A lot of folks seem to like that bit.
Yeah, yeah, it catches their attention. All right, so we went from success, or should say, yeah, success to struggles, and now we're on perseverance. So let's define this a little bit. What in your mind, what is that? What does perseverance mean for you, and what is it? So people can get their heads wrapped around it and understand what it is.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. That our careers is it's kind of like a roller coaster ride. There's a lot of highs, there's a lot of lows. But as I mentioned, we should try to enjoy the journey, and that's what I try to do. I try to enjoy the journey itself, and be proud of who I have become over time. But I think in order to persevere, you really have to know why you're doing what you're doing, right? Otherwise, like, what's your real purpose? What do you love doing? You should understand that and like be in touch with that, because that's what's going to drive you. That's going to help you persevere. That's going to fuel you. And if you are living your purpose and you're getting to do what you love on a daily basis, that will keep you going, and that's what keeps me going. So I think perseverance comes as a effect of like knowing your purpose and basically pursuing your purpose. It will keep you going.
Nice, nice. And I was going to ask the question, what keeps you going? But you just answered that one, right? So,
Yeah, that's what helps you persevere. I think just going back to basics of who you are, why you're doing what you're doing. You can always go back to that, and it'll recharge you. It'll refuel you.
so let me. So okay. So let's do this then. Let's. I want to pull on this thread a little bit more on this one. What what would be so was there a time like when it was really really tough and you found yourself struggling, like you just our conversation here, I can feel great energy, great vibes, you're really in line, you've really done a lot of that internal work and heavy lifting, as you say it. You can tell you've done it, but when what how do you yourself when you find yourself in that really struggling. I know you mentioned the mentoring, but is there anything else there from the perseverance piece? Hints, tips, tricks, that if somebody's really struggling, they could get what would you recommend that they do, or how could they help themselves?
Yeah, I think if you're really struggling and stuck in a bind, what I usually do is, I just kind of, I just call it a day. Be like, okay, today I'm not gonna be able to figure this out. I'm gonna take a break. You detach yourself. You go do what you enjoy doing, spending time with your family, a movie, whatever you want to do to distract yourself from the problem.
Mhm.
And that seems to work for me for some reason. At some point you kind of admit to the failure that I'm not going to solve this today. I'm going to try again tomorrow, and I'm going to go back and refuel. And next day when you come back, it's you'll be surprised. Like it's just things have changed, something else has evolved, and a solution kind of presents itself. Right. So when you're really stuck in a bind, just take a break. It's not the end of the world. Come back tomorrow. There's another day, and I'm sure something will work out.
Yeah, and I think one of the hidden messages in your response, and I'm going to call it out, is you're you you're not letting your ego and pride get in the way here. You said, I think what I just heard, and I just want to paraphrase this, is that if you're stuck, you're like, hey, I can't figure this out right now. I need to step away, and I'm not gonna, and you do, and to me, that is one of the hardest things for especially our technologists, like you were saying earlier. When you're that engineer, you got to be the best of the best. So how does being best of the best and then saying, oh, I can't do this right now, I got to step away, how do you reconcile, or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, no, that's hard. That's hard because once you kind of get into the groove, the engineer in you wants to solve it out. But that's when you have to know your limits, right?
Hmm.
And like going back to why you're doing what you're doing. So you kind of pull yourself back up. And if you're too focused, too zero in, too close to the problems, you might not be able to find a solution today. So at some point you got to be like, okay, I've hit my limit. That's it. I'm going to take a break and I'm going to attack it again tomorrow with double efforts, and hopefully something will work out. And it usually does, in my experience.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So where I'm going to go now is there was an video that you did. It was We Are Ontario Engineering Digital Resilience, and there were some a lot of key points in the video, and the importance of the demand that's going to be hitting our industry, and especially advocating for the amount of engineering and what we're going to need for the future. And one of these quotes in here or statements was companies around the world spent 2 trillion in US dollars on their digital transformations in 2022. It's expected that this number will reach 3 trillion by 2025. Wow, that's hard to believe. So what's going on there? What do you see happening? What's this all about?
Well, technology has always been kind of fueling innovation and how businesses operate, right? So recently, there's been a lot of disruptors in technology, like cloud computing, DevOps, agile ways of working, and now AI. And all of these technology breakthroughs are basically transforming our businesses. So digital transformation is all about, okay, how do we use these tools and technologies to change and evolve our business? Because the business models that worked 10 years ago are not might not work over the next 10 years, so they need to evolve constantly. And these technologies are helping us evolve those businesses, taking advantage of these innovations in technology, so that businesses stay in business, they continue serving their customers in better, new and improved ways, and just staying competitive.
Yeah, and this rolls right into the quote, another quote from the article, which was, "These engineers are not just required to execute the transformation, but also to sustain these transformations and the new business models." So here again, you put that as a quote. You went to that as your response just a second ago. And then what I really want to point out though is sustain these transformations and business models afterwards. The way you were just speaking, I really want to call that out because most technologists and most leaders of technology, going back to what you were saying before, they were promoted from their decades in the making of being technical, brilliant experts at their technology, and now being thrust or put in or elevated to that leadership, which is now the soft skills, the team versus that leader. And now it's business. You're as that leader, it's not the leading the technology. What I'm hearing you say and what we're realizing, with the DevOps world is it's the business now. You have to be a really tied to the business. So help me explain that, or for other leaders, what do they really need to be looking at here? How do they, you know, existing senior leaders that are, used to being elevated because of their technical expertise, or if you're that young leader that says, hey, I really like this leadership stuff and I'm technical, how does my path look? So how does business play into that, or what you're saying is sustain the business models?
Yeah. So yeah, I think the point I was trying to drive there is like technology is there to serve businesses, right? And businesses serve their clients. So really, technology is trying to serve clients in better ways.
Yeah.
And any transformation. So when we talk about digital transformations, any transformation has a possible start date and a possible end date, right? But I wanted to emphasize that even when the transformation is over, there's going to be a sustained need for talented and skilled employees that can operate in these new business models. As the business is changing, underlying technology is changing, the skills that you've learned during the transformations are not going to be outdated. They're going to be There's going to be a sustained need for that talent. And like AI, we were talking about, that's another prime example. It's opened up new ways for businesses to use technology to serve their clients, and it's going to have a big impact on a lot of businesses. Now, how well do the businesses adopt and exploit these new technologies and enhance their customer experience? That's gonna be deciding if that business is gonna survive or thrive, right? So the innovation or the transformation is actually a never ending pursuit, right? There
Yeah.
will always be a high demand for skilled employees that are innovative, and can use technologies to enhance the business. So not just skilled employees, but leaders. So I would just rephrase that by saying that there will always be a high demand for skilled employees and leaders that are innovative and know how to use these new technologies to enhance the business.
Okay, totally align with you. And when you were talking, what one thing that came, what I should say, a key point. I'm really excited about it, so I'm jumbling my words right now, trying to frame my question in my head right now. But what it really gets into is behind the scenes, right? I think where we're going with this, and if you're okay, I'd like to take a few minutes to go down here a little bit deeper,
Yeah.
because what you're pointing out is that what I'm seeing is a balance. We have flowing value to your customer is how I like to frame that, and then you have internally, you have innovation and all this other stuff. But then you have this thing called politics, and you have things called the current way of doing things. And now you have those internal collisions. And in one project, we called those collective or I'm forgetting the name now, but it was basically it was a positive way to say we're having collisions, and yeah, they're collisions, but we're going to work things out. So what how can you share with us or provide us some insight if you don't if for leaders today on how they can maybe not have as much chaos and dysfunction in those collisions going on, or constructive collisions. That was it. That's what we called it, constructive collisions, and be more constructive about the collisions. And then for the employees that are frustrated because they're not being heard, their innovation is not getting through to be able to get to those product owners and getting that innovation into the product lines. What would you say to that, that current state?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, in innovation and like transformation, it's not easy. There's a lot of change involved, and there's a lot of friction because you're trying to introduce new things, and the politics gets in the way, and folks are used to doing things a certain way. So I think for that, I think we all need to kind of realign to like. How do we want our business to evolve, right? Get everybody on the same page, back to the basics, that how do we see our business growing and improving, and how do we use this innovation to kind of fuel that. So we need to get all the stakeholders on board with that, and then encourage a culture of innovation, a culture of open discussion as to like what's good for our business and what is not good for our business, and kind of navigate through the politics, and like there could be a lot of conflicts that need to be resolved, or facilitated, to get to a conclusion. Now all of that is very necessary, right? We talked about failure being a necessary stepping stone, so all of these conflicts are also stepping stones, and that's it's on the path to success. So those are actually very necessary to go through that, and actually get everybody on the same page, whatever that page may be. And if we could get everybody aligned and have a culture that promotes innovation, change, and adoption of new technology, and having an open mind, I think we could work through and resolve a lot of these productive conflicts, as you call them. So I think that's very necessary. It's kind of the growing pain, right? You can't grow without the growing pain. So it's
Right.
part of that growing pain, and it's necessary to go through. But it leads to a better outcome in the end.
Yeah. And I think one ingredient here, I want to mention it, is, the customer. So the customer is as an ingredient into that mix. What's your thoughts on that as far as transparency, involvement of the customers, and what we're talking
Yeah, no,
about
that's key. That's a great point. I should have probably mentioned that as well. The customer is the key. That you can align everybody, like technology, all the politics aside, everything the business is doing, they're trying to serve their customer, right? So we could, if we could have the customer's voice, in those discussions, and very clearly see how you know. Doing or using these technologies impacts the customer experience in one way or another. I think making decisions will simplify greatly, and getting alignment from people would also become easier.
here. Nice. I agree. I agree. So let me ask you this about your career path then. So I've had discussions, or one of the questions I get from a lot of our young engineers out there is, hey, John, how did you get into this field, and how was your journey? And what I tell them is that the path that I traveled doesn't exist anymore in today's world. And so for yourself, I'm curious, if you were asked that question, uh, you know, by an upcoming engineer saying, what would your response to that be? How would you
Yeah,
answer?
no, I think that's a great question, and I get asked the same question, and even if I share my path with other people, they might not be able to use that because it might not even exist anymore, like you said. So I think, what I would kind of recommend is like focus on the goal. So if you know you want to get into these areas, start learning about them on your own. Start talking about it. Start taking courses. Look for opportunities where you can use these in real world examples. So start doing it. So have your objective very clear, and like map out. You have to map out your own path towards that objective, and you might not be able to copy somebody else's path, right? So for example, if all of us want to get to New York, and we put in our GPS, how do I get to New York? The path's going to be different for everybody, depends on where you are, right? And what can you take, like, can you buy a plane ticket, or you have a car to drive? So it's not going to be one path for everybody. You have to find your own path, and you have to forge your own path. And but one thing you need to be clear about is, where do you want to go, right? So if you don't have that clarity, how to get there is probably secondary. So if you know you want to get in these technologies, there's a lot of courses available, a lot of content available online. Start upskilling, start using these in your job, and basically showcasing it. And that's how you're going to gravitate towards getting into those fields. And that's what happened with me. I just put my hand up and say, hey, there's a transformation happening, I want to be a part of it. And next thing you know, I was working on projects, transformational projects, and they got the ball rolling. And that's how I really got into it. It sounds very simple, but I think that's the method. You know where you want to go, you got to find your own path, and you got to forge your own path, and then nobody can really stop you.
Yeah, and the context where I want to, as you were talking, what I realized is that it doesn't, what we're talking about here, it could be a senior leader, right? With these transformations, it doesn't matter who you are, where you're at in the organization, how many years experience you have or don't have. These digital transformations are new for everybody. We've never had, this combination or this environment or this, many things coming together, divergent things all coming together with this amount of disruption. And so I think I just want to emphasize the key point. Pull out that one a key point that you said is that you got to start doing it, start iterating, jump in, don't be fearful, go, go, go. So I just
Yeah,
want
no, exactly. Don't wait. Know what you want and just go for it. I think that's the only path forward.
yeah, and even if you don't, I would say so. Let me say this then. Let's say I don't know what I want, right? So I just I've talked to folks who know what they want, and there's folks that don't know what they want. I would say the same. I say the same thing to the folks that don't know have a direction. Jump into it and just start trying something. Start
Mm.
trying stuff, and then that you're going to find your way. I guess we call that fail fast in agile terms. Fail
Right,
fast. So
right.
yeah. So and learn from that and move
Yeah,
forward. That'll
exactly.
help guide you.
Yeah, fail fast, fail early. And that kind of, it's a great point to tie up the whole conversation.
Yeah.
Like, fail fast and fail early is a core belief that you got to adopt, and replace the belief that failure is bad, right? This is another prime example of what we started out with, that we got to, as leaders, we got to replace some of our disabling beliefs with more empowering one. And this is a perfect example of an empowering belief that you just mentioned: feel fast and feel early.
Well, Gary, this has been incredible and inspiring. And just thank you so much for being our host. As we wrap up the show, what I'd like to do is give you the opportunity to share with our audience any last thoughts or closing words. The floor is yours for the last couple minutes.
Yeah, thank you so much. I don't really have anything to close with, but because I think I've said everything I wanted to say throughout our conversation. Um, but like, based on my journey, I would say there's a lot of successes, there's a lot of failures, perseverance is needed. But the future is bright. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to do, and doesn't matter where you come from. If you have the interest, you have the drive, you have the perseverance, and you have the mindset to follow your dreams, I think like nothing is impossible. And you can make your own journey. You don't have to copy somebody else's journey. You forge your own path, and maybe you can help somebody else build their path and like knock down walls, for others to follow. So yeah, so that's all I want to say, that the future is bright.
Thank you again, Gary. Thank you for joining us. That was great.
Thank you for
So,
having me.
you're welcome. Yes, anytime. So, we hope you found this episode of our Leaders in Transformation valuable and inspiring. Remember that transformation is not just the destination, but it's an ongoing journey. And the choices we make during, each day, every day, shapes the landscape for tomorrow. Our journey as leader requires continuous growth and adaptability. As throughout our discussion, we've talked about that, and failing too. It's okay as a leader to fail. And if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to join us next month for another great episode in Leaders in Transformation. On behalf of our guest, Gary Tamber, and our DASA team here at Leaders in Transformation, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to continuing our journey in the world and into that world of DevOps and into our next episode. Until then, stay inspired, stay innovative, and keep on leading.